Beep, 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 beep. Hello, 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 good people. How are we? Had a great day yesterday at this free speech thing in Manchester, which was lovely. Chance to speak to some people, chance to talk about various things, and in this particular instance, communication and education. So to all of you that were there, thanks for coming. It was great. Okay, and now let's move straight on. Hit the smash button, smash the like button, will you? Give it a bit of a click, yes, and subscribe so that you can see that I'm wibbling. Other than that, there's an interesting video that surfaced from the Heritage Foundation. Ooh, scary people. We get this business about the Heritage Foundation every now and again. It's almost like if you attach somebody to the Heritage Foundation, you can treat them as if they're a Nazi because people think Heritage Foundation are Nazis. Well, you know, nonsense as usual. You remember that Posey Parker was linked to the Heritage Foundation. They said that LGBT Alliance was having money from the Heritage Foundation. It's like they try to fix everybody to the Heritage Foundation as if these people are some kind of demons. Now, in terms of how they think about the world and how they see gay people, the Heritage Foundation is no friend to me. They do not mean me harm, but they're no friend to me. If you look at what they write and who they are and what they do, then you can see that they have a conservative point of view, driven quite often by religious freedom, which is absolutely fine. Right? They're part of the milieu and the everyday conversations that take place around this in America. At the other end, you've got the ACLU, who, from my perspective right now, certainly don't look like a friend to me at all, even less so than the Heritage Foundation. And yet we, as a group of people who fight this nonsense, find ourselves with the most strange of bedfellows. And I've said this a number of times, and I think you will agree that even though it might be hard to do sometimes, it's I think exactly the opposite that they do, but I think the same that they do about the nonsense. It's very hard to do that sometimes in a collaborative endeavour, to put aside your differences in order to move forward. But it's very important that we're able to do so. And I don't care where stuff comes from, right? If the stuff that comes from somebody, no matter how awful they are, makes sense to me, and I want to discuss it, then I'm going to put it out there in the forum of the market of ideas that is Twitter and YouTube. And you should be the same, right? So it doesn't matter who said it. I'm not interested in what said it. I want to know what's the substantive nature of what they said and which of it matters to us and which is important in considering fighting the absolute nonsense that is critical social justice and gender ideology, queer theory, all the stuff we know that we're having a scrap with. So this is a good example of that particular dichotomy. I don't particularly like these people, but they're saying something that I find to be interesting and substantive, and I would like to have a conversation around it. So I've added the video to the end of this so you can see it, right? So you have a look at what is being said by the bad people at the Heritage Foundation. And then perhaps in the comments, you can give me some comments about what you think they're saying, whether you think that they have a point, they don't have a point. They may be the Heritage Foundation, but it strikes me as they seem to have similar goals to those of us who wish to end this incredibly nasty set of beliefs and set of practices that is laying waste to our society and affecting children first and foremost, and gay people and women secondly. If this was to end tomorrow and none of it existed anymore and we go back to normality, then the Heritage Foundation and I would be donning our boxing gloves to enter the ring and scrap about perhaps gay rights or the rights of women. But we wouldn't be doing it in the same way as our current enemy is, which is in nature of the most awful cancel culture and also the attack upon free speech and the reality of history, the replacement of history with nonsense. We wouldn't be doing that, would we? We'd be arguing about the substantive points because the people at the Heritage Foundation weren't the ones that said no debate. That was Stonewall. So it's hard to swallow sometimes. And you know as well as I do, some of the fantastic women that are working in this, some, not all, some, are as left as they get. I'm going out with some shortly. I always like that because we have blazing rows. And it's fascinating to have that kind of conversation. When your areas of disagreement can be not just political but cultural, and also from the perspective of men and women about what men and women are and what they should do. So those are always meaty and wonderful conversations that are worth having. And it's only your ability to abandon your emotionalized reaction that means you can do it. I've got a couple of friends that just simply won't move on this, and I was thinking about them while I was watching this, and I was thinking why this makes such perfect sense to me, some of it, with such clarity, as an overarching idea. We're at the meta level here, right at the top, yeah. As an overarching idea. But yet they won't move. They won't move in their ideological belief systems because they are ideologically blinded by their blinders, right, obviously. And they're men who are old enough to know better. And it occurred to me that the reason that they won't is not because they are politically the opposite of what I am, it's because they are politically inert. Because to be politically active means you must have the ability to abandon your emotionalized senses and get rational about the subjective. And that is hard to do. That's why it's so frustrating. I had a fantastic conversation with a chap yesterday at the meeting, looking for answers and looking for a defined and definite thing. And I'm like, no, you stop looking for that. It's not what you want. You want ambiguity. You don't want certainty, you want ambiguity. Now, where there should be certainty, we should point it out and go, that, right? But you're not going to get it in much of it. And that certainty also ought to be based in a scientific endeavour. Follow the science, those types of things. So this is a particularly interesting take from Davos, WF, all that lot, WHO, all that lot. This is at the World Economic Forum, where a guy from the Heritage Foundation lays out what he thinks will happen if Trump becomes president. In fact, I think he's saying it as if any Republican president becomes president. So it's a fascinating insight on a high level, high altitude, low resolution level of where America may well be post the election, if they can get rid of old Uncle Biden, right? So do take a look and let me know what you think in the comments, because I think this is fascinating. I think this is really fascinating. And then ask yourself, all those years ago, however long it may be, for some, 5 for me, more for others, less for some of you, where your friends and your family thought you were an absolute crackpot, rattling on about men in dresses and gender ideology and queer theory, and no, but the truth is, you know that when you sit at the table for the first time and you vomit all over them and they think, Christ, we're not inviting you again. You'll remember that moment, some of you. Remember this, right? This is the World Economic Forum. This is as high as we get. And they're discussing it there. Who was on the right side of history? I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy. It's equally,
standing up for it.
It's equally laughable to use the word dictatorship at Davos and aim that at President Trump. In fact, I think that's absurd. But I'm going to step aside from that constructive criticism and instead answer your question.
Yep.
And I'm going to be substantive here. President Trump, if he's the next president, for that matter, I think whoever the next conservative president is going to take on the power of the elites, which I've mentioned earlier. But the thing that I want to drive home here, the very reason that I'm here at Davos, is to explain to many people in this room and who are watching, with all due respect, nothing personal, but that you're part of the problem. Political elites tell the average people on 3 or 4 or 5 issues that the reality is X, when in fact reality is Y. Take immigration. Elites tell us that open borders and even illegal immigration are okay. The average person tells us in the United States that both rob them of the American way of life. They're right. President Trump will take that on behalf of the average American. Elites also tell us that public safety isn't a problem in big American cities. Just travel to New York or Washington or Dallas, Texas. The average person will tell you that the lack of public safety damages not just the American way of life, but their life. President Trump will take that on. Thirdly, I guess the favorite at the World Economic Forum is climate change. Elites tell us that we have this existential crisis with so-called climate change, so much so that climate alarmism is probably the greatest cause for mental health crisis in the world. The solutions, the average person know, based on climate change are far worse and more harmful and cost more human lives, especially in Europe during the time that you need heating, than do the problem and the problems themselves. Fourth, 2 more here, Robin. Okay. The fourth, China. The number one adversary, not just to the United States, but to free people on planet Earth. Not only do we at Davos not say that, we give the Chinese Communist Party a platform. Count on President Trump ending that nonsense. And fifth, as we sit here, another supranational organization, the World Health Organization, is discussing foisting gender ideology upon the global South. These are practices that are under review, if not being rejected, by countries in Northern Europe. The new president, especially if it's President Trump, will, as you like to say, trust the science. He will understand the basic biological reality of manhood and womanhood. And do you know why? not because of retribution, not because he's a dictator, but because he has the power of the American people behind him. And it's connected to Senator Portman's excellent point that in addition to needing a vigorous executive, we look forward to having the popular will inform both the House and Senate in 2025 to pass laws on all of those issues and many others. Ultimately, Robin, I think President Trump, if in fact he wins a second term, is going to be inspired by the wise words of Javier Milei, who said that he was in power not to guide sheep, but to awaken lions. That's what the average American and the average free person on planet Earth wants out of leaders.